You know, I decided to try something today. I wanted to go through this video in one go and make a unscripted video. I feel like the advantages of making a scripted video is that I'm able to get my points across and pretty much hit every single point. And one of the disadvantages I always felt with making things unscripted was sometimes I have all these really important things that I want to get across, I want to share, but it doesn't always, I miss a few points. I can't remember them all, and without a script I miss a lot of things, and then I always go back and kind of re-record it. But the problem with this scripted video is that I sound a lot more robotic. Like whenever I'm talking, I sound like yeah, it just like the tone is, I guess, a lot more flat. Even when I try to do things more dramatically, it's not as authentic. So for today, I think this video isn't as serious. It's basically me talking a little bit about what I wrote for the story of TRACIUM. And I shared this before, the story about the kindred kind, but today I'm going to talk about my inspirations of why I created the system and like this. And it's not going to be anything serious, but I think this will be pretty fun. So the first thing I talked about was the kindred kind. Originally I made these characters to be the players. The players that are going to be playing this game are going to be the kindred kind. Now historically, this is not set in stone yet, by the way. The kindred kind have only been in the world of TRACIUM for about 100 to 200 years. I think 200 years should be pretty fair, because they all of a sudden started popping out, and before then it was very, very difficult for the humans of the world to, or the mortals of the world to kind of survive in this world, and they were actually getting because the beasts of the land are actually extremely dangerous, so they were getting pushed back a lot. And then something miraculous kind of happened, which is the kindred kind were born. These they were almost like superhuman, so you could almost think X-Men. Like they were born, but they had these powers. The powers were limited though, because they could only use these powers while they were in the areas of ley, which actually helped them a lot because they were able to defend themselves from these beasts. So after they've noticed that the kindred kind are able, like the people noticed that the kindred kind are able to use the power of the ley, they also found that, you know, if you like almost by accident at the very beginning, like you could actually form like a permanent connection with the ley to become like a heroic envoy. I thought that was a cool name. Like a heroic envoy sounds so damn cool. The inspiration for the ley and covenants and trials actually has a lot to do with witchcraft. Like the origin of ley and ley lines and covenants have a lot to do with witchcraft, which actually I thought was interesting. Like making the heroes, you know, the quote unquote heroes of the story to be like what we would consider in our world to be like witches. Really, because they tap into the powers of these ley lines. So their powers like originally are geographical, but once they go in and form these covenants with the heroes, they can permanently gain the hero's powers. Now you might have remembered that a few videos ago I talked about the classless system that I plan to have in this game. Now the classless system is something I've always really liked. I really hated being limited to only playing, kind of having your fate set in stone the moment that you create your character. Now, I guess there are games like, I think Skyforge does this. I could be wrong because I haven't played the game for that long. I think I played the game for like 2 days, but they allow you to like choose and change, but you're still set as like a class. I think in the future we can definitely make something that's customizable, like that actually has like a lot of like that's modular. That you can switch things in and out and customize the character that you want to be. And also, you know, there's a big emphasis on being able to switch it in and out, because your fate is not set in stone the moment that you create your character. So it happened a lot of the time. Like I played World of Warcraft for quite a few years, and what happened like a lot, especially like at the beginning of a expansion or something like that, I only really played like avidly played World of Warcraft for the first, you know, 3 expansions, like Vanilla, Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King. But what would happen a lot is I would always play something and then be like, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side. I look at some other guy and I'm like, you know, that actually looks very very nice. You know, like I don't want to play a warrior anymore. You know, I think mages are OP, so like I'm gonna go re-roll and I'm gonna play a mage. I think a lot of people also have this problem. I definitely don't want the system to be like you can just switch it in and out whenever you want, but I want it to be you're able to kind of experience what it's like. Like you can actually go to the other side of the grass, experience and see if it's really greener, you know, before you commit, which I think is a pretty one of the inspirations for making the lay, because when you're on the area of the lay, like from a storytelling standpoint, this makes perfect sense, because when you're on the area of the lay, you can experience that hero's power, you know. And these heroes are I refer to them as heroes because they're not people of the present. They're people of legend, you know, of the past. Most likely like historical people, because what happened in the past is they would, you know, people would spread stories and the stories would be altered and stuff like that. But the kindred kind actually have like a spiritual connection with these heroes. So when they go into the lay, they experience that hero's like memories, and you actually experience what that hero is like. And they also are able to when at the very end when they have to face the hero's trials and overcome it, they basically need to like really understand that hero. And I think this will be reflected in a way where if you go in and you want to have that hero's powers, like for example, like from a mechanical standpoint from the game, if you want to have the hero's powers, like their skills and abilities, you have to go in and you have to face this trial, and it's going to be like this really hard, most of the time it's probably going to be some really hard boss fight or something like that. It doesn't have to be a boss fight, it could be some scenario, you know, like there could be stories of like you know, like there was like this legend, this like Norse legend of like the lone Viking on this bridge. You know how he like defended the bridge like by himself, and then like eventually died on the bridge. You know, those like really epic stories and stuff like that. So it might not be like a giant, you're not fighting some giant creature that's like threatening your home. It could be like you're you know, you're fighting against invaders, like hundreds of them, and then you're like going at it solo. And yeah, and then you complete the trial, and then you become a heroic envoy. Now I'm going to talk more in the future about how I plan to balance this, because this is going to be extremely hard to balance, and nobody currently well, actually there is the technology to do this, but nobody currently is doing it. I guess it's because the technology is not open to the world yet, but I do believe that in a few years it will, and I'll talk about that in a future video, about how I plan to properly balance a system where there's theoretically thousands of combinations. So the development of the kindreds, I basically wanted the players to feel a lot more special. Like I wanted them to feel like they're special in the world when they go out, and there's always that sense of uniqueness, you know. So like you're you're different from everybody else. Like you might have a similar build from somebody else, but your version is like different. It's not the same version. Like yours could be like a very glass cannon type of a certain, like, you know, like you're a caster that uses fire or something like that, but theirs is like, you know, tankier, sustained damage, and then you're like a full burst glass cannon, stuff like that. It could be completely different. Like you could play on the theme of that. And so for the development of the Kindreds, I explained it in the story where because for the history of the world, for a few thousand years, nothing has really advanced. Nothing has really the people of the land haven't been able to go out and explore a lot because of them actually being pushed back by the beasts of the land, which actually I kind of created them to be stronger and stronger every generation until like miraculously the kindred kind came to existence. And you know, obviously in the story the kindred will explain. I actually like thought of a few possible explanations of how the kindred kind came, but for now I can't spoil that. So all you have to know is the kindred kind emerged 200 years in the past, and when they were born they were actually able to take the advancement of their civilizations forward because they're no longer really threatened, you know, by the beasts. And they some of them, I'm considering doing like a war, like a pre-story war as well, because when they first emerged, a lot of like one of the kingdoms got really cocky and stuff and thought that they could like go out and conquer everything, and then they came across another kingdom. They're like, all right, we're gonna make you our bitches, you know, like that's kind of how it really worked. And as for like this part, I kind of wrote it in a way like a scholar would write it. You know, it's like very technical, and I think this is also something that has to do with like forming the covenant and taking the trials, because when the player comes in and actually starts playing the game, they obviously have to start with like, you know, you're like a new young kindred kind, and you're trying to train and form your first covenant with your and become like a heroic envoy. And when you try to do this, like there's 3 areas that you can spawn at. I'm planning to make 3, and then you basically start with like a basic skill set, and then eventually as you go and progress more, you can gain the skill sets of more and more heroes as you progress and complete their covenants and take their challenge, and you know, complete their trials, basically is what I'm saying. So the three areas, I guess I'll talk a little bit about them because I haven't made it public, the introductions for these areas. All these notes on my website that you see over here are the ones that I know are more or less going to be final. There's a lot more notes, but these are the ones that are more or less like I'm not going to change too much of them. I might change a few names and stuff, like names of cities, which for now you haven't seen any pictures or anything, so there's not really any there's not that much connection. Valdria, I kind of like the name, I kind of don't. I might change the Ia, because Ia's from Latin, and a lot of people like Ia sounds very, very nice, because like a lot of places that in real life that we name today like end in Ia, because it was from Latin. So Valdria is like the city where it's kind of in the center. I actually have a map, you know, but the map is not extremely detailed. It's actually just a draft. Put it in the garden. It's like a very very rough map, but I was actually planning to expand a few things, like maybe make it bigger, add more forest over here, and then move more and like further away, and then like Frostguard further up. So Valdria is like in this city in the middle, and they're basically like around a forest. And Valdria is kind of like where a lot of tribes originate and gather. I call it like the land of 1,000 flags, because it's where it's like really mixed. So if you think of modern day, it's like, I guess it's like the U.S., it's like America, where people can come and gather and become, you know, part of something greater. So Valdria, and then Frostguard's over here, and Morn. So in Valdria, I wanted to make it like where they're more traditional, so they're more, I guess, more religious. So they have like churches and temples built upon these lei, and they think of these heroes as saints, and they kind of worship them, and they also allow the kindred kind to learn about the history, the story of the hero, and then they have like, I guess, kindred kind that are, or heroic envoys that completed the trial. They're to train these kindred and kind of guide them, like you would if you're like a monk in a monastery, you know, like you would have like the head monk. And then in Morin's more of a, I would call it like closer to what I would describe as like a warrior nation, where they're it's, you know, it's more about like their strength and stuff, and they're actually even, I can't say traditional, but or primitive, but I guess they're more spread out and more kind of, I kind of think of it in the way of like Buddhists almost. I think of it closer to like in terms of religion. So like Valdria would be closer to something like you know, like traditional Judaism or like Christianity, but like Morin would be closer to something like, you know, like Buddhists and monks, and like they would train, and they would like in a lot of times, you know, in like in ancient times, like if you want to learn like kung fu and stuff, you would go to a master and you would train from that master, and there would be like a master disciple relationship. So I wanted Morin to be kind of like that, where the kindred kind, when they go and train, they seek a master, and they train under that master to learn. And obviously that master is like this. A lot of times people who are willing to be masters, they're like really generous. They're willing to share their knowledge. Like they have a passion to share their knowledge with the young. So that's kind of what it's like in Morin. In Frostguard, Frostguard is like the most advanced city of the three. They're more, I would say, technologically advanced, and they're like a lot less religious and stuff. But I guess in my world, it's still like there's no crazy high-tech stuff, but I talk about technologically advanced as in they have more systems in place, you know, to do things. And I guess technology, I can't say technology advanced. I would have to just say advanced, like in their structure and stuff. So they're more of a like they have an academy. They establish, when they find the kindred kind and they notice, like they have people that study the lei, and then they what they do is they actually build an institution upon the place where 3 ley lines cross, you know, because it's the most efficient way to do it, and then they train their kindred kind there. So like everything's like very systemized, and it's set up in Frostguard. Like they're it's kind of like that. I actually no, their society, it doesn't really, like, their people won't look like it, but I think of their society very, very similar to like the capitals of like modern day China, you know, where they're like completely like really capitalistic, and that's what drives them forward, you know. And these institutions basically train the heroic envoys to enlist in their army, you know. And the benefits of this is they can use the strength of the kindred kind to push further into the rift and make more explorations and conquer more places. So I think you know, I started out with like 2 main cities, but probably their land would be like much bigger, and then they might have went through the waters up above into the rift, and these are like more or less unexplored areas of the rift. And that is pretty much it. So this is like a little piece of the world, because I wanted to make it where they're in a world where they were not able to really push out and explore a lot because of how dangerous it was outside, and until very recently. And then this is how we make the story advance very rapidly once the game actually does launch. So that's kind of my ideas, my inspirations for some of this. I decided to do this completely unscripted. It actually felt really good. I don't think it's low production value or anything, but I do stutter a little bit more. I do go a little bit more. But all in all, I think it's pretty nice. So none of this is final. It's just what I have to begin with. But everything here, I think I don't have to change too much. In terms of storytelling, I do not have to change too much, because everything I share on this site more or less is going to be final. I might change a few concepts, like tweaks here and there, like maybe you know, if they leave the ley lines, they retain their powers for like maybe an hour or something like that, like just to maybe fit the story in the future. But so far, I think this is pretty nice. And it's nice. It's nice to share what I have so far. I'm working on making more stuff when I'm not making content. And I think another advantage to making an unscripted video is when I make a scripted video, I actually take a lot of time to write the script. And then after I record the video, I take a lot of time to edit. I take even more time. Like making a 3-minute video takes like, maybe I'm just a very bad editor, like takes like 2 hours to edit. But yeah, I think this will definitely work. I'm trying a lot of new things out, and hopefully something sticks and works out a little bit better. But anyways, I'm gonna stop rambling. This is what I do a lot when I kind of feels like the old videos. I ramble a lot. But yeah, it was really nice, and thank you guys so much for the support, and I'll see you guys again very soon.